r/AskReddit created by routinereddit. Serious. People who have found a secret room or space in their house. How long did you live in the house before you found it, and what was in it? What was the eventual outcome of finding the room? Moved into an 18th century farmhouse as a little kid and found a small panel door in the back of the large closet in my small room. Turned out to be a small finished room over the eaves that had a small portal window. I spent hours in that room reading and hiding from the world. This sounds like a childhood dream come true. I'm an adult and would like something like this. Adulthood is the perfect time to fulfill childhood dreams. Sometimes families would build hidden rooms to keep kids that weren't right mental issues / malformed out of the world's view. Horrible solitary life. Edit. Commonly known as disappointment rooms. Possibly a fake. It was much more likely that they were just sent away to another relative / an asylum. Houses with small rooms that are lockable from the outside, with small windows and drains on the floor, were more often just for cold storage. It's unlikely you bring in local builders when you wanted to hide something, not to mention hiding it from your also local staff and stuff. Why would somebody make a finished room with a portal window to store coal? Where I come from, coal is shoved through a tiny window that has no glass, but a grid panel, into the basement. Why would someone store coal over the eaves, is the more pertinent question. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe for daily Reddit videos. When clearing out my grandma's house, I found a small door in the wall of the basement that led to a tiny room. According to my mother, that's where they hid the family heirlooms when thieving relatives came to town. I was mostly interested in the fact that it was covered in scribbles from my mom and her sisters growing up. That reminds me of my grandmother. Your other grandparents will be joining us, so I'm putting away the good dishes. I mean, a passive-aggressive slight isn't exactly rude if it's true, though, right? My mom just told me how her family too had a special place to hide anything they cared about when a certain family of relatives came over. She said they would steal or break most anything. I remodeled a home that has the second largest library in the US. It was one of the first houses built outside of Louisville. A big steel mill owner had it built. This place was huge with a detached greenhouse that was the size of a house. There was a few closets with small doors. Behind it was a small area that you could stand up in, but not much else. When it came time to remodel near the library, I went exploring before we sealed the area off to prevent dust from getting on these centuries old books. I was in or looking over books that were written before anybody living on the planet was even born. In between the shelves was solid wood floor to ceiling. I noticed a piece of base at one of these sections had a small gap at each end. About our level was an indentation in the panel. I pulled on it and it opened. The room inside wasn't very deep, but went the length of the library. Inside was a few shelves with books that looked like they were from the beginning of time. There were old blueprints and other manuscripts. I dared not to touch anything. There was also a floor safe. The greenhouse also had a room behind the storage area. It had been under shade since about the 1960s. It was filled with a lot of the old lighting fixtures, door locks and other vintage stuff. My eye caught an old metal sign about the size of a folder. It read "Hip is used, back door no exceptions." The greenhouse was getting demolished later that day and we were glad we discovered the room. The homeowner was excited about having the original fixtures. He told me I could keep the sign, so it hangs on the wall on my back porch. Did the homeowner already know about the secret library room? Any chance of a photo? That's amazing. It was about a year into owning our house. We actually found 2 secret rooms. One was just a room under the stairs that was closed off. Had some toys from the 70s in it. The really crazy one was when we redid the insulation in our attic. One of the workers asked if I knew there was a room up there. I had no idea, so we cut open the drywall and there were stacks on stacks of boxes from the 60s. Like a ton of boxes. And they were all full. So I opened them up expecting some cool stuff. And they were full of freaking pine cones. One of the bigger bummers of my life. Darn it. Why don't people store carefully preserved mint copies of Superman? First edition, or at least a stack of jewelry? Why the heck would you store pine cones? They were probably collected for crafts. Likely Christmas decorations. Not worth packing when you move out. When I was younger, my family would go and collect pine cones and store them in our attic. We would use them for kindling in the winter. That sounds like it smells amazing. Wouldn't want to live there if there was ever a fire, though. The entire attic stuffed with resinous kindling. At least it would be quick. In my house there was an upstairs bedroom that was made into a game room for me and my sister. When we were about 12 years old we realized that a section of the paneling came off and there was a small closet-sized room behind it. We kept it a secret so that when friends came over we would have the ultimate hiding spot for hide and seek. A few years later we were talking to our parents about what we found, and they said that the house was built during the Prohibition era, so they most likely used it as a place to hide alcohol. I picture you guys hiding in there during hide and seek and just never coming out until hours later when your friends had gone home. Come out hours later when the police show up to investigate the missing persons report. That's how you win ultimate hide and seek. Whoever files a report loses. My mother's house growing up had an entire hidden speakeasy that the kids stumbled across while playing hide and seek. Free billiards table with bowls made out of ivory and some quality pre-WW2 wines. I went to visit my grandparents a few months after they had moved into a new house out in the country. I got into a bit of horseplay with a cousin and got shoved into a wall. It broke a big hole and we realized there was a large empty space back there. With grandpa's help we tore the wall down and found a little room full of planting trays and grow lamps. There were a number of books about horticulture and one specifically about growing marijuana. There was no secret way in as far as we could tell. Someone had just walled the entire room off for some reason. In a house a friend was renting, I realized that there was a missing 5 feet between the back wall of the master bedroom and the back wall of the garage. Poking around the garage I found a piece of plywood with concealed hinges, held shut with 2 nails. Opened it and found a 12x5 room with walls covered with foil and a couple of outlets for lamps on the ceiling. My friend converted it into a walk-in closet. That missing 5 feet was a plot point in one of Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House books. A tough winter had come, so everyone in town agreed to share their harvests to make it through winter. Pa noticed one of the shopkeepers' building was missing space at the back. He dramatically goes up to a coat hanger peg that had been drilled into a knothole, and oats start pouring out. The shopkeeper had tried to stash his own. Imagine being so nosy that you look for discrepancies in the size of your neighbor's buildings. Like, mind your own business, PA. To be fair, without that food, his whole family would have died. Hidden closet in basement wall. After 20 years of living in the house, we found some personal documents of no real interest, a newspaper from the day after Pearl Harbor, and a hand-drawn cartoon of a pregnant Lucy yelling "God dang it Charlie Brown." Please tell me you saved that drawing. Not sure where we put it. I'm gonna have to look for it now. Pretty sure we didn't throw it away. You had better show us. The newspaper sounds super cool. There's a whole niche market for collectors. I have several from WW2, Pearl Harbor, Normandy Landing, VE Day, and Hiroshima, plus the moon landing, JFK's death, Nixon's resignation, Elvis' death, the Life magazine of Charles Whitman's shooting spree, the hunt for Lincoln's assassin, and my oldest is from Sherman's capture of Savannah. Pretty interesting glimpse into history reading through them. A couple of years ago I rented an apartment that was in a massive old architecture style building. No idea how old it was. I remember when I did the showing they showed me a door that had an elaborate staircase that went straight up to the ceiling and explained that it went to the attic, which was sealed up. When I was finally moving out, curiosity got the best of me and I pushed on the panel at the top of the stairs until it popped open and hoisted myself up there. It was completely dark and the floor was covered in at least an inch of dust, and I found that it was an entire extra floor to my unit. There was some old rotting furniture and magazines littered throughout the rooms. I eventually found a small hole in one of the walls that went into the sealed off upstairs of the unit next to mine, and decided to go through that one too. I found a smaller hole at the back end of that area that led to the next one. I eventually made my way through about 5 or 6 of these sealed off spaces that had no entrances save these small holes in drywall. The farther I went in, the older the furniture I found. Fridges from the 50s or earlier, old dishware, and so much dust over everything. The last unit was the most interesting. Hand painted scenes on the walls and holes to the attic letting sunlight stream in. I took small videos, but they are all on Snapchat, so they are hard to post. I must have been up there for hours just exploring alone in the dark. I was pretty lucky to have the only room with access up there. Way to end that album with that creepy noise and you turning the camera. It's like a modern day found footage film via Snapchat. It's bizarre they'd leave all that space up there unused. If your neighbors could hear you walking around up there, I'm sure they'd crap a brick thinking it was a ghost. Where was this? If you don't mind sharing. I'd like to think I'm pretty good at walking around quietly, but it was absolutely impossible up there. Way too creaky. This was in Superior, Wisconsin. I actually ended up moving to a different unit in the same building for a bit after that. Killed me that there was no access point in that one.